Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports, where today the World Junior Tournament has just wrapped up, and we got to talk about some standout players from the tournament, as well as other news and notes around the NHL. Guys, as usual, thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Make sure that you check out our YouTube page down below in case you're checking us out on any streaming platform that you prefer, youtube.com/I-80 Sports. If you're joining us here on YouTube, hey, if you're not subscribed right now, hit subscribe, hit the bell notification so that way you guys know when we go live. We haven't gone live in a little while, but we'll be changing that hopefully sometime in the near future. So you want to make sure you hit the bell. Also, join the conversation down below. Who do you guys think were standouts at the World Junior Tournament? And what news kind of strikes you from the past few weeks in the NHL now that we're in the year 2023? Comment down below, hit the like button if you like what we're doing. And if you follow us on Twitter, or if you don't follow us on Twitter for that matter, make sure you follow us down below at I-80_sports NHL. And if you follow us already, thank you guys so much because we greatly value all of your support. I'm Brian. He's Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
Doing well, and Happy New Year to everyone. We're back. Here we are, 2023. World Juniors are over. Going into the dead of winter now. Home stretch time for maybe a few teams, so we'll just get right to it and see what happens.
Indeed. Before we talk about the World Juniors, we got a little bit to talk about here, so bear with us for a little while here. If you're here for the World Junior Tournament, fast forward ahead if you guys want to check that out. But for right now, let's talk about the news and notes from around the NHL as we entered the year 2023. Also, Happy New Year, like Tom said before, too. Time to hit up that traffic report. What's going on in the news?
The I-80 Sports Traffic Report, where you can find all your news and notes from the week.
Our traffic report, as always, is to talk about the NHL news and notes from the past few weeks, and it has been a few weeks for us. We went on a quick little hiatus there since around Christmas time in America, just because we wanted to celebrate our holidays. We needed a little bit of time to just recharge, get back into gear, and we're back with it right now, coming back at you with some weekly videos here. But let's talk about some news and notes from around the NHL this week. First and foremost, we have to talk about Marc-Andre Fleury stepping away from Minnesota for a few days for some deep personal reasons. Tom, let's start with you. It doesn't seem like that this is an actual physical injury here for Marc-Andre Fleury. It does seem like he has a deep personal matter that he has to attend to. Should the Minnesota Wild be concerned with the status of Marc-Andre Fleury going forward?
Well, this could be anything really, but the Wild have been playing very well lately, and this could throw a huge wrench in it. I mean, time's really going to tell with how long this may take and how long it may keep him away. I can sort of tell. I watched the end of the game last night with them in Buffalo. I could tell his body language at the end of the game wasn't of the greatest, and I'm wondering if this is, whatever this may be, if this is something he may have found out right before the game last night and still played anyway. But I could tell something may have been weighing on him last night. The Wild are currently losing to St. Louis as well, so it's already having somewhat of an impact. It just depends on how long he's gone, and, hopefully it's nothing super serious, but who knows? Who knows at this point? It could be anything. Teams are very good at not disclosing this stuff until the players want the public to know what's going on. So I guess for the Wild's sake and I guess for Fleury's sake, hopefully it's not something that's too big and he's back very soon for them. Because right now, they lost last night to Buffalo and currently losing to St. Louis, and they play the Rangers on Tuesday night, who I'm sure and I'm hoping will be out for blood Tuesday night after what they did yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, to state the obvious real quick, I mean, losing a first ballot Hall of Famer at any position is a crushing blow to any team. But this definitely feels different in the sense that it stings a little bit more when you understand the circumstance. And I hate people on social media that try to pry information out of either the media or out of the player themselves. And this is a deep personal matter, as Marc-Andre Fleury said himself, and he is allowed to keep things private if he would like to keep things private. This matter is no different. Guys are allowed to keep things private and keep things, tucked behind closed doors. To that I say, Marc-Andre Fleury, get well soon, and hopefully this isn't something too serious. But Tom, I agree with you. I mean, reading his body language, he's frustrated. I mean, he's frustrated because beyond just whatever personally he's dealing with, he's had a few blow up games and he's acted very emotional in all of those blow up games that he has played. But even despite his blow ups, he's playing very good hockey, and so is Minnesota for that matter. Minnesota's been playing very good hockey in the Central Division lately. And Marc-Andre Fleury, 13 wins so far on the season at 38 years old. He has 25 starts as well, sporting a 294 goals against average and a 901 save percentage at the age of 38. He's been playing fantastically, and to lose him for an extended period of time could hurt. He could be back as early as Tuesday night for the Minnesota Wild. He could be out a little bit longer, and to that I say, if he is out a little bit longer, power to him, because it seems like he needs to sort some stuff out, and that's all I'm going to say in that regard. Get well soon, bud. Let's talk about some injuries around the NHL. This kind of perfectly segues us into talking about some injuries that we need to catch up here in the NHL. First and foremost, that I wanted to catch up on that happened more recently. This one sucks to report, but Jake DeBrusk of the Boston Bruins, fractured fibula. He's going to be out for at least 6 to 8 weeks, possibly even longer. He was on a goal tear for a little while there for the Boston Bruins. He was playing some really stringing together some really nice games for the Boston Bruins. So it sucks to see him go down with injury. So again, Jake DeBrusk, placed on IR January 3rd with a fractured fibula. Catching up on some other injuries here around the league as well. Brett Ritchie has been placed on IR with an apparent wrist injury as well. Just scrolling down and looking through as quickly as I can through some of these injuries here. It seems like Chicago's got a little bit of the injury bug going on lately. Patrick Kane is day to day with a lower body injury, and Kyra is with an undisclosed injury. Not sure what the deal is there. Colorado Avalanche, the hits keep on coming. Valeri Nichushkin was day to day with an ankle injury. He left the game on December 22nd, so I need to actually look into that one to see if he's actually back from that yet. Pavel Francouz was also placed on IR with a lower body injury. You hate to see that for any goaltender, so hopefully he gets well soon for the Colorado Avalanche. They're going to need him down the stretch. Columbus Blue Jackets, the hits keep on coming for them. Boone Jenner, fractured thumb as of December 18th, so he's out for a while. Yegor Chinakhov out with a sprained ankle. That was since the same day as well. Could things possibly get worse for the Columbus Blue Jackets? Be honest. Let's be real here. Could things really honestly get worse? Just scrolling down here, Edmonton Oilers, Ryan Murray out with a back injury since December 18th. Scrolling down further, Trevor Moore of the Los Angeles Kings out with an upper body injury, and Arthur Kaleyev out with a lower body injury here for the Los Angeles Kings as well. We just discussed Marc-Andre Fleury, who is currently day-to-day for personal reasons, but to tag along with that for the Minnesota Wild, Mats Zuccarello is day-to-day with an upper body injury. That hurt too because of how good he's been this season. We'll get into that in a little while too. Montreal Canadiens, it's starting to go downhill quickly for the Montreal Canadiens here. Mike Matheson placed on IR with a lower body injury. Caden Gooley placed on IR with a leg injury. I think the prognosis there was about 6 to 8 weeks on that injury too. And Brendan Gallagher is day-to-day with a lower body injury as well. Earlier in the month, they also lost Sean Monahan with a foot injury. He has not been back since, from what I've seen. New Jersey Devils lose John Marino for a little while here with an upper body injury. There's been no update on when he could resume hockey activities. Nathan Bastian seems like he could be returning to action in practice pretty soon with this upper body injury. There's no timetable on his return just yet, though. New York Islanders, Oliver Wahlstrom placed on IR with a head injury, and Holstrom out with a knee injury, and Kyle Palmieri also out with an upper body injury. So the Islanders are also feeling the bug as well. Ottawa Senators Nikita Zaitsev placed on IR with a lower body injury as well. And Tyler Mott also fractured his finger as of December 21st. He's going to be out for a little while he, straightens out his finger. Nothing to report from the Philadelphia Flyers, which probably not the worst thing in the world to not report anything at the moment. Chris Letang came back after having that stroke and then promptly got placed on IR with a lower body injury as of December 28th. So that stinks for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's see. San Jose Sharks. Radim Semek has been placed on IR with an upper body injury. I almost said placed on upper body injury with IR. I can English. That was one of my New Year's resolutions, was to English better. And lo and behold, I speak goodly. St. Louis Blues, on the same day for the St. Louis Blues, things are really going down quickly here for the St. Louis Blues. They lose Torrey Krug to a lower body injury as of December 26th. And then the day before New Year's Eve, they place both Ryan O'Reilly and Vladimir Tarasenko on IR. Things could really be up in the air with both of those players as we approach the trade deadline in February. It could really throw a wrench into St. Louis's plans to possibly offer up Ryan O'Reilly and Vladimir Tarasenko as trade bait towards the deadline. So that's going to be really, really interesting to monitor as we come down the stretch. Also to note as well for St. Louis Blues, Nick Leddy and Robert Bortuzzo day-to-day with an upper body and lower body injury, respectively. Tampa Bay Lightning as well, respectively here. Victor Hedman and Zach Bogosian are day-to-day with personal reasons and an undisclosed injury, respectively there. The Toronto Maple Leafs, nothing new to report here, but should be reported. Jake Muzzin is still not back from his injury. Victor Mete is still not back from his injury. And Nick Robertson is also not back from his injury as well. Same thing to report with the Vancouver Canucks. Still no Thatcher Demko. Still no Tanner Pearson since November. Nothing really crazy to report here with the Vegas Golden Knights, but once again, still no Shea Theodore. Still no Zach Whitecloud. That defense is hurting right now and hurting bad. Washington Capitals, they get two players back that we're going to talk about in a little bit, but then they lose their best defenseman in John Carlson, who got a slap shot to the face before Christmas. Talk about that as a really nice Christmas present. Hey, get ready for face reconstructive surgery. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And then Winnipeg, Logan Stanley still not back from his lower body injury. That is effective still as of December 8th. And Mason Appleton still with his wrist injury. Not back yet, but I think he does seem to be getting close to returning to NHL action sometime soon, though. Tom, any injuries here that kind of stick out to you that really sting for their team?
I mean, Colorado with losing the Chuskin right now, it doesn't help them out either. And Franchose, you just get arguably your best player, Nathan McKinnon, back, and now you lose Nichushkin. And now, eventually Landeskog should be back fairly soon, but it's just a matter of this team. I thought that they would be, two-time Stanley Cup champions if they win a second one in a row this year, but they just can't seem to be healthy. They can't seem to have a healthy lineup out there. They had a big win against Edmonton in overtime last night. More power to them. But the problem with them is if they're not going to – right now they're outside of the playoffs looking in. I think that will change. But if they can't stay healthy, they may find themselves game one of the playoffs in April opening up on the road if they cannot stay healthy. Time will tell. The other two with St. Louis, Ryan O'Reilly and Vladimir Tarasenko, that's a huge loss for them. But even before they lost those guys, and even into last year, the Blues were trending downward. And, I mean, the Blues have been hot and cold. They'll lose a bunch, they'll win a bunch. They'll lose a bunch, they'll win a bunch. They're sitting at one game over 500 right now. They're beating the Wild, yes. But the reality is without those two, that's their two best forwards, where are the Blues really going? Where are the Blues really going without them? And then you were right in what you said earlier, and maybe it will be time at the trade deadline to start looking for new homes for those two guys. And maybe it will be time to maybe start tearing it down in St. Louis. You got your cup, yeah, but I mean, how many times are you going to try to reinvent the wheel, though? You won your Stanley Cup 3 years ago. And maybe it's time. It's not like they were long-term contenders, say like Pittsburgh or Boston or even Washington, for argument's sake. The Blues just sort of they were before that in David Backes' years. They won that cup. They had a little bit of success afterwards, but maybe it's just time to start looking in a different direction over there in St. Louis.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, if you're a Buffalo fan right now, I think you're really, really thanking the St. Louis Blues right now for Tage Thompson at the moment in that Ryan O'Reilly trade. You know, you go back and you think about that Ryan O'Reilly trade, and you're thinking, as a Buffalo fan, man, we just gave up a top 5 center in the entire league, and now you're looking back on it now. It still stings to give up Ryan O'Reilly, of course, but if your consolation prize is Tage Thompson, I think you take that at the moment. Tage Thompson, one of the best goal scorers in the league at the moment, also at time of reporting this. But yeah, it absolutely stings St. Louis because even though they're keeping pace in the Central Division right now, they're only 2 points behind Colorado for 4th in the division and only 6 points behind Minnesota for 3rd in the division right now. So the Western Conference is a lot closer than I actually ever thought it would be. But a few of these teams are playing above their weight right now. St. Louis is playing above their weight. Nashville needs to finally dig themselves out of this grave. Colorado has just been racked by injury, as Tom mentioned before, and Colorado could lose pace very, very quickly if they don't shake this injury bug. I mean, getting their captain, Gabriel Landeskog, back is going to help immensely, but they really need to start picking it up in the standings, and they need to win some crucial games against the next 3 in the division, Dallas, Winnipeg, and Minnesota, respectively. Time will really kind of tell what happens there. The other thing that really kind of stings also, I mean, in the grand scheme of it all with the rest of the lineup is playing quite well without him, but even still, losing Jake DeBrusk with the start that he was on to the season at the midway point to the season really, really hurts, and it hurts his development as well. And I just want to point out Jake DeBrusk's stats real quick. In 36 games, he had 30 points, 16 goals, 14 assists. They're going to miss that production, especially when you consider that there were only 3 guys ahead of him on the stat sheet. That's Patrice Bergeron with 32 points, Brad Marchand with 36 points, and David Pastrnak with 54 points.
Very, very true. But remember, you have Craig Smith, Taylor Hall, and Nick Foligno, who you could easily move into that spot as well. Right now, the Bruins are destroying everybody right now. And don't get me wrong, he's been one of their best players, but I don't think they're going to feel that loss all too hard over there. That's all. I meant to say that earlier. I totally forgot about it.
Fair, valid, but you talked about putting in Craig Smith into that slot. He's done nothing this season. 25 games, albeit in limited minutes, in bottom 6 minutes, like 4th line minutes here. 5 points in 25 games. He really hasn't earned the chance to really get into that top 9 territory or even into that top 6 territory by any means. And it hurts even more when you consider his contract too. That being said, you have other guys ahead of him on the depth chart that I think can do things a little bit better than he can at the moment. Pavel Zacha is a person that I think of on this list. Charlie Coyle is a person that also I think it could be in line for some more minutes here as well. Even AJ Greer has been playing really, really nice hockey on the 4th line too. He could even be in line for a little bit of extra time as well. But you're right. Boston is destroying everybody right now and just crushing the rest of their competition at the moment. They're absolutely the favorite as we come into the midway point of the NHL season, which we're going to be talking about next week. Actually, we're going to give you guys our midway report next week on things. Let's get back to some other news and notes around the NHL. We talked about some injuries. Let's talk about players coming back from injury right now. So we got some guys making some, pretty interesting returns. Andre Palat finally came back from his lower body injury, his groin surgery for New Jersey Devils this past week. He's played 2 games since coming back. Good to see him back as a New Jersey Devils fan myself. But I would say I am really, really surprised to see Nicklas Backstrom and Tom Wilson back this quickly and this soon for the Washington Capitals. Tom, I'll ask you on this one. Are you surprised to see Nicklas Backstrom and Tom Wilson back this quickly? And what does this mean for the Washington Capitals going forward?
Backstrom, yes, because I didn't think he would ever play again. Wilson, not so much. What it means for the Caps, I'm not really sure, to tell you the truth. The Caps, even with them, haven't got themselves out of the first round since they won that Stanley Cup way back in 2018. They had both of them sort of healthy last year and didn't do much, couldn't get out of round 1. They're still an old team, and I'm just thinking they're hanging on to the days of old and not trying to Jerry Krause the team and blow it up right now. They have missed the playoffs since 2014, yes. They're in the thick of it now, yes. So I would guess they need them and need to use them. I do agree with that. But at the same time, yet again, it's the Caps. It's like, okay, they still have all these guys, but I mean, does anybody really look at them as a serious threat right now? I look at them as a playoff team, yes, but I don't know if I really look at them as a threat in any sense of the word.
It'll be left to be seen if they will be a playoff team, just because I'm looking at the Metropolitan standings right now, and the Met is really, really close with some really heavy competition with Carolina, New Jersey, Washington, and the New York Rangers in the top 4 at the moment with over 50 points this season so far. By far, that is your tightest division at the moment, is the Metropolitan Division. But I don't know if Washington can maintain their momentum being in third place. I feel like the New York Rangers are going to overtake them within the next week or so. I think the Islanders could overtake them if they shake the injury bug as well. Hell, even the Pittsburgh Penguins could go on a quick tear coming up pretty soon.
Well, they're just as old as them, maybe even older. They're both old.
Yeah, Pittsburgh Penguins also have lost their last 6 games too. So Penguins can't find their way out.
Washington might have a little more youth than the Pens. That's my only argument. Whereas Wilson and Kuznetsov are a little bit younger than, say, guys over in Pittsburgh like Jeff Carter, for argument's sake.
True. With Washington, though, I see them playing spoiler in a lot of ways, and it's specifically because of one guy, Tom Wilson. Like him or hate him, Tom Wilson has a way of changing the momentum of a game by any means necessary. And to me, where I feel like this really comes into play is the team right in front of him in the standings in the New Jersey Devils. What have the New Jersey Devils proved so far this season? They struggle with playing physical teams. They struggled against the Philadelphia Flyers, who are at the bottom of the barrel in the Metropolitan Division. They will likely struggle against the Washington Capitals if Tom Wilson consistently pushes guys off the puck. They struggle in that current aspect of their game. Now, the Devils might try to do something at the deadline to try to address that. Maybe try to pick up a guy that is a little bit larger, can, skate and keep up with the momentum. I see the Devils maybe going after Andreas Athanasiou as a potential response to that, a guy who's fast and also can use his size and throw his size around. Maybe even if Minnesota exposes Jordan Greenway as a potential option, that could be a way that the Devils go. But the Washington Capitals could play spoiler to a team like the New Jersey Devils, and it kills me to say that, but I think that's Washington's role right now in the Metropolitan Division. I don't know if they're fully aiming for playoff contention. I mean, it certainly seems like they are, and Alexander Ovechkin has overtly stated, as long as I'm playing for the Washington Capitals, we are going to be a playoff team, and we are going to be a competitive team. So obviously getting Tom Wilson back, huge. The jury is still out on Nicklas Backstrom. I want to see how he returns from this injury. He had a full-on hip resurfacing, damn near replacement, and also had some back issues that went along with that. So I'm going to be really interested to see how Nicklas Backstrom plays post-surgery. He could either come back looking the same like he did, much ado about nothing, and really helps make some nice plays for the Washington Capitals and set up goals for Alexander Ovechkin like he's been doing for a decade and a half now. Or it could be the beginning of the end for Nicklas Backstrom. Time will tell. I certainly hope for the former, in that he comes back from this injury and is fine and then some, but time will tell. Time will honestly tell. But let's move away from this right now. Before we start talking World Juniors, thank you guys for bearing with us through this. Let's talk some quick hits real quick, just because I just feel like I needed to mention this. Jacob Vrana has cleared waivers for the Detroit Red Wings. He was out for a significant time for personal reasons that, once again, as we talked about with the Marc-Andre Fleury situation, we're not going to dig deeper into, because private matters deserve to stay private. Plain and simple. Surprising a little bit to see him clear waivers. I thought maybe some shenanigans were going to be pulled by one team out there to maybe see if they could force a deal with the Detroit Red Wings. But it seems like Stevie Yzerman had a plan to make sure he goes down to the AHL on a rehab assignment and gets back into hockey activities in general moving forward. The Seattle Kraken have assigned Shane Wright to the OHL finally. And it seems like the Montreal Canadiens are going to be doing the same thing with Juraj Slafkovsky just because of the number of injuries that they have, and it looks like their season's slowly going south.
Well, Slafkovsky is he's AHL eligible. Remember that. He's
True.
AHL eligible.
But
right
he is AHL eligible, but there's talks that he could be OHL bound in the next week, so that's going to be interesting.
How can he be OHL? I don't think he's ever played in the OHL.
Or not OHL, WHL, I think.
They're going to send him to the WHL? Why not just let him play in the AHL? That doesn't make any sense.
I think it was some form of junior league that they were, or was it SHL that they were considering?
No, I think it's going to be AHL because if you're European and you never played Canadian juniors, you can go right to the AHL. It's the rule. The rule is like ancient. It's antiquated, but he's going to probably wind up playing for Laval. I don't think any junior teams own his rights, and I think at this point it wouldn't make any sense. Because I'm just looking up. Yeah, he played all his junior and pre-NHL hockey over in Europe. So technically he's AHL eligible. Wright has to go back to the OHL, but it looks like he's going to be traded when he gets there anyway. Not by the Kraken, but by his OHL team, the Kingston Frontenacs. They're saying the London Knights, owned by Dale Hunter, are the favorites to land him.
Yeah, and could be a nice little change of pace there for Shane Wright. And I really, really hope that the shenanigans that Ron Francis keeps pulling on him just ends and just send him to the OHL for the remainder of this year. Let the kid develop properly, come back to the NHL next season once he's really ready for the competition. The shenanigans they pulled with him this year were damn near inexcusable in a lot of ways. They really, pulled a fast one on him, rightfully or wrongfully. But anyway, speaking of Shane Wright, he participated recently in the World Junior Tournament. So that being said, let's pump the brakes.
Not so fast. It's time to pump the brakes.
So let's talk about the World Junior Tournament that recently took place where it was Team Canada ruling the world in many, many ways. So Tom, if you don't mind, could you read us the results of the World Junior Tournaments? What teams ended up placing in the tournament?
Okay, the winner and the host nation, Canada, won it. In the silver medal, the second place was Czechia, who really surprised a lot of people, including myself. I mean, they had the little run there in the summer tournament last year, which was the replay of the one that was canceled. But yeah, they surprised me and a lot of others. They knocked off a lot of good teams along the way, including Sweden, whom they were down against up until the final minute of the third period of the semifinal game, were able to score to tie it and then win it in OT. So hats off to the Czechs, man. They may be somebody to watch, or I have somebody to watch. Yes, somebody to watch in the next couple of years in this tournament. They really, really, really came out of nowhere. And in third place, our home country, the United States of America, beat Sweden in the third place game. I didn't watch it because I think the third place game is stupid and they shouldn't have it.
Yeah, it was rough. Watching that semifinal matchup for USA and Canada, I really wanted to throw my TV out the window at one point. Not going to lie. Tom, I know you feel the same way.
Was not happy with it. That first no-goal call should have not been a no-goal call. The second one was legit. I will give them the second one. But the first coach's challenge, that was pure BS, if you ask me. It's Canada. And the funny part about it is I'm sitting there before the game and none of the refs are American nor Canadian. Obviously, you're playing in a hostile crowd there in Halifax. And I've said it before and I'll say it again with this tournament. When Canada hosts it, I personally like when they do it in non-NHL markets, say like Halifax or Saskatoon, for example, or Victoria, or, Quebec City. I like when they do it in the smaller markets. The fans are it's a lot louder. The fans are more on top of you, but I do wonder if that had something to do with it. I do wonder if I don't think he was bribed or anything, but I do wonder if in his mind that was weighing on what his call was, the ref. I don't know. I wasn't happy with the way it ended for the U.S., but what are you going to do? It's Canada on Canadian soil. I could say we never beat them, except for the fact that we have beat them quite a lot recently.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good tournament. I will say that. It was a lot of fun to watch. You had some really, really good players to watch throughout this tournament. Tom, all right. Who stood out in this tournament and why was it Connor Bedard?
Because he just smashed Eric Lindros's record. And my only hope is that he doesn't have a similar career to Eric Lindros and a similar trajectory. And my other hope for him is that he doesn't wind up a Philadelphia Flyer. But on top of that, what more can you say? 9 goals, 14 assists, 23 points. Now, you ask me, how many games did he play to achieve this? 7. 7.
Yeah.
They're saying right now, some experts in Canada, guys who have represented Canada in this tournament, guys like, I don't know, let's just, for argument's sake here, Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, the aforementioned Eric Lindros, Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, let's just name a few who have played in this tournament and all had respectable tournaments. Experts are saying that this may be the greatest Canadian World Juniors performance ever. Not for the decade, not in the last 10 years, not in Halifax or Eastern Canada, ever. Ever. As in better than Gretzky, Lemieux, Lindros, Crosby, and McDavid. As in better than all of them. That's saying a lot. That is saying a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to break it down a little bit further in terms of Connor Bedard's stats, if we haven't painted a vivid picture already. So in 7 games, Connor Bedard had 9 goals, 14 assists, 23 points in 7 games. That's unprecedented. His dominance was outstanding. He danced around 4 players at one point because he had no outlet pass and still found the back of the net. I have not seen a player of this talent level in quite some time. Probably the last talented player on this level that we've seen enter the draft was Connor McDavid in 2016. It's been 6 or 7 years since we've seen a player of that caliber. And I think, dare I say, we could be seeing a more talented player than Connor McDavid and enter the league in the next year and really kind of push the tempo in the NHL. And I'm going to be really interested to see how Connor Bedard transitions to the NHL game in general. I think he'll have a relatively seamless transition, but I'll be interested to see who drafts him. Like Tom mentioned, I hope it's not the Philadelphia Flyers. I hope it's not the Columbus Blue Jackets, where careers go to die.
Or the Anaheim Ducks, who literally are the Harlem Globetrotters of hockey right now.
Yeah, don't get me started on that one. And also, can I also just, I want to vent frustration real quick on Team Canada, because you mentioned like the Harlem Globetrotters of hockey. Early on in the tournament, I'm sorry, there is no place in a tournament like this that is held in such high esteem to try to pull the Michigan, let alone twice in a game for Team Canada. Shame on Team Canada for those shenanigans early on in the tournament. It was terrible, awful. There's no place to be pulling stupid trick shot type of moves like that at the tournament level. You want to pull that in an NHL game? Cool. You want to pull that in college? Fine, whatever. Don't care. This was not the time nor the place to be pulling that. When you are representing your country, there is a time and a place. Most of those times it's called practice that you pull that stupid stuff. Another place is called the All-Star game. This is not an all-star game. This is where you are trying to actually advertise yourself to NHL teams who are actually thinking about offering you money to do this for real. Not the time or place to be pulling the Michigan. I'm sorry to be sounding like, Boomer standing on his high horse, standing on his soapbox, yelling at clouds, but there's just no time or place for that. I mean, do you agree with me on that one, Tom?
Yes and no. I think that they were a little too overconfident against the Czechs. I feel like they disrespected the Czechs.
Yeah.
But look at it this way. They attempted that Michigan, and the Czechs went back and beat them in that first game.
Yeah.
And a lot of times with Canada too, and for them, for Canadian fans and for Canadian players and for Canada in general, maybe that's why they won the tournament. They went into that game like that, and look what happened. Too overconfident, lost, had a challenge, dealt with adversity right after the first game. Remember, 2 years ago, how stacked was that team? Team Canada. Ran through everybody. Got to the gold medal game against the U.S. Just needed to score more goals than the U.S. in a 60-minute interval. U.S. went out there and shut them out 2-0.
Yeah.
So maybe, just maybe, that failed Michigan play and that loss to the Czechs is exactly what they needed to go out and win that tournament.
It's entirely possible. So if you ask me with Connor Bedard rather, talking of his performance from Team Canada and entering the NHL draft after this year, after the completion of this NHL season, I think he's going to Chicago. I think that that's going to ultimately be the team that wins the draft lottery. I just call me crazy. It just seems like Chicago is due for the number one overall pick. And if it's not going to be Chicago, I'll be bold and even say the Arizona Coyotes, which that would be really, really, really dangerous if Arizona gets Connor Bedard, because then there's also talks that they could be very well be going after Austin Matthews in this offseason too. Could you imagine Austin Matthews, Connor Bedard, and Logan Cooley on the same team in the NHL? That would be nasty. And even nastier thinking that it would be in the desert in a 5,000 person arena to boot at Mullet Arena. Nasty in my regard. A couple players I also want to mention here who also really did good hockey things at the tournament as well. Logan Cooley, as I mentioned before, he had a really good tournament. 7 games, he had 14 points, 7 goals, 7 assists. Yeah, he did a really good job. He averaged 2 points a game. He did more than he ever could have asked for. He to me, he's your MVP of Team USA from this past year. Not too far behind him for me was Jimmy Snuggerud for Team USA as well. Also want to mention Dylan Guenther of Team Canada. 10 points in 7 games. Also scored the golden goal. Even had a conversation with Sidney Crosby after that game. Really cool to see too. Want to mention a couple other teams that also played really well too. Team Sweden also looked quite well. I got to mention Philip Bystedt, who had 10 points in 7 games, as well as Ludvig Jansen with 10 points in 7 games as well. Cutter Gauthier also played very, very nicely for Team USA as well, 10 points in 7 games. If you're a Philadelphia Flyers fan, you start getting excited about that potential production as well. Other players that I wanted to mention here, Chaz Lucius also stood out to me because he was all over the ice for Team USA, 7 points in 7 games as well. And I'm gonna come out and say it. I really liked how, as a Devils fan, Simon Nemec looked for Slovakia. I thought he really helped manage the tempo of Team Slovakia very, very nicely. And that makes me a little bit excited for potentially maybe towards the end of this season, maybe seeing him at the NHL level for the New Jersey Devils as they make a playoff push, and maybe coming into next year being a maybe second or third pairing guy in the NHL next year for the Devils. Could be really, really exciting to see. Tom, is there anyone here that did not stand out in your mind that needed to, stand out a little bit, maybe separate themselves from the pack?
Well, it's the other player that Canada was really leaning up on to have a big tournament, and that's Shane Wright. I mean, don't get me wrong, 7 points in 7 games, yes, that's not terribly bad, but I expected a lot more from him. He wore the C for Canada. He was sent down there for the specific reason to lead Canada to a championship, yes, but I feel like he could have contributed a lot more. Just wasn't there for me. I felt like he was kind of, and it's a horrible comparison here, but sort of the role Dave Anderchuk played on the 04 Tampa Bay Lightning. It's like, okay, here's the old wily vet, the captain of the team. Let's get one for him. But except that Shane Wright is only about 19 years old. He's still young. A year ago, he was regarded as the top prospect going into the draft. And he really is not doing himself any favors. I mean, granted, they won. Granted, he was a point per game player, but he still didn't do himself all too many favors in this. Say what you will.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, Shane Wright, I feel like he didn't really need to prove himself in this tournament, but it's a little disappointing given the talent level and our expectations for him. 7 points in 7 games, that's fine. But he was very much in Connor Bedard's shadow this tournament for sure. And even other players stood out in my mind above him for Team Canada. Joshua Roy also, Joshua Waugh rather, stuck out of my mind as a player that was leaps and bounds above him. Logan Stankoven, another player who was drafted last year, stood out a little bit more to me than Shane Wright. He just wasn't that noticeable on the ice for me. A little disappointing too to me. And Tom, I'm ready for you to disagree with me here. Brennan Ottman. it didn't really stand out to me in this tournament. 6 points in 7 games, almost a point per game, but I felt like I feel like there was more in that tank there. Do you agree?
Yeah, but at the same time, when you're out there on Bedard's line, what do you really expect it to do? I think he was just out there to create space on the power play and the like. I didn't particularly hate the tournament he had. I didn't love it. But he's consistently been a 6 or 7 point guy in every tournament he's been in. He's been at or near a point per game every time he's represented Canada. I wouldn't say it was a disappointment for Brendan Othman. I'd just say it was kind of a run-of-the-mill tournament for him.
Damn, exactly. And then lastly for me, the other person that I felt like needed to stand out in this tournament if he wanted to raise his stock was Adam Fantilli. And, he was a player that was hyped pretty hard coming into this tournament as maybe a player that could usurp Connor Bedard for number 1 overall if Bedard didn't have a good tournament. But lo and behold, Bedard had a more than a good tournament.
The same thing happened with Quentin Byfield about 3 years ago. It was the same thing. He was at one point at the end of that tournament was used as Canada's 13th forward.
Damn. And then, with Fantilli, it was a little disappointing for me. 5 points in 7 games. He played all 7 of those games, 2 goals, 3 assists, and I don't know. He's not a bad player by any means. I think he's got a really bright future in the NHL, but I feel like there was a missed opportunity there for him. I don't know if number 2 overall is as clear cut now, given his status from the tournament, A, but then B, Matvei Michkov of what would have been Team Russia not playing as well. I think it's kind of left up for debate now for who goes number 2 overall between the two of them at the moment. So I think Fantilli had an opportunity to really kind of separate himself from the pack and, solidify, being the easy number 2 in the draft. And I just don't think he did it here. That being said, still a bright future in front of him. Still a very good and talented player. I just expected a little bit more. Before we leave, I just want to point out my favorite name of this entire tournament, and it has to be Bogdan's hot ass. That's all. I just wanted to mention.
No love for Marcel like Ivan.
No, there's love. That's an honorable mention. Marcel is another fantastic name. Wasn't it like Marcel Jr. also? Isn't there another Marcel?
I don't know. I had a professor in college with the name of Amar, but I didn't really like the guy all that much. So,
well, maybe least honorable mention there, dishonorable mention rather in that regard. But yeah, let's move away from the World Junior Tournament here. Really fun tournament, a lot of fun to watch. If you didn't get to watch this year, you missed out, especially on the Connor Bedard show. But check it out next year when it rolls around next winter as well. All right, let's talk about guys doing good hockey things in the NHL and outside the NHL. Let's talk high performance.
Your I-80 Sports High Performance Players of the Week.
All right, so we're talking players of the week, or, from the past few weeks since we've missed a little bit of time here. Tom, who are your players of the week and then some?
Well, welcome back, Nathan MacKinnon. I'll say that much. He returned, He returned December 31st. He's got, since he's come back, 4 points in 4 games. Monster night against the Oilers last night. They were comparing McDavid and McKinnon, and he scored a typical Nathan MacKinnon goal last night. Come out of nowhere, burst into an open slot, go fly down the ice and roof the puck. Typical Nathan MacKinnon goal. I hope that for Colorado Avalanche fans' sake, that this could be the spark to get their season turned around. They're defending champions out of the playoffs right now, so we shall see. Another honorable mention is Keandre Miller, who actually, I believe, has had 5 points in his last 5. I've just loved the way Miller's playing. Homer alert, yes, I know, but I really just like the way he's been playing lately. I've been a real big fan of his even before he was drafted, so hats off to Keandre Miller. And just for fun right now, Dylan Guenther, man. Moment that he'll probably never, ever forget, and he'll, be remembered in Canadian hockey lore for probably the rest of his life, and will probably never, ever have to pay for a meal in the city of Halifax again, I'll say that much. And for anybody who's never been to Halifax, Halifax is a beautiful city. I was up there when I was 15 years old. Really, really nice town.
Oh, yeah. Really good mentions there for you as well. I'm going to be a homer here in general. I'm always a homer. Jack Hughes may be the best player in hockey over the last month. He's got 20 goals in his last 21 games. He's been very impressive heading into the halfway point of the NHL season, and rightfully so. 49 points in his last 40 games. Just in his last 2 weeks, in his last 6 games, he's got 10 points in his last 6, 8 goals, 2 assists. Jack Hughes is really starting to become a superstar in the NHL. It's happening right before our very eyes at the very young age of 21. It really makes you excited for what he could become. Talking also about younger players doing really good things for their respective teams. Tim Stützle of the Ottawa Senators here. First of all, one of the best players of the past few weeks as well. In 6 games, 11 points in his last 6 games, with 8 goals and 3 assists to boot. He's got 39 points in 35 games this season, 18 goals, 21 assists. He's been playing some really, really good and underrated hockey for the Ottawa Senators. It's unfortunate given the circumstances of the Ottawa Senators this year, just not being the best NHL team, what we really, really expected in the Atlantic Division this year. But Tim Stützle is a really big bright spot for the Ottawa Senators, and he's earning every bit of that paycheck. Other players I want to mention here, Kyle Connor, also another big reason why Winnipeg is playing really, really nicely in the Central Division and currently in second place in the Central Division. 11 points in his last 6 as well, 5 goals, 6 assists in those last games as well. Also need to mention Pierre-Luc Dubois in the past 6 games as well, 10 points in his last 6. And trying to bring his team out from the cellar is Philip Forsberg of the Nashville Predators as well. 9 points in his last 6 games. Yeah, got a lot of players doing really, really, really well, but obviously far and away at the moment, the best player in the NHL. Come on, it's Connor McDavid. I got to read these stats off real quick just because I'm baffled by this. In our current day in the NHL, he's officially at the halfway point of his season, so 41 games played. He has 76 points in 41 games played. He has 33 goals and 43 assists. His all-time career numbers and points is 123, and that was last year in 80 games. He is currently on pace to shatter that. He is on currently a 152-point pace. Whether he keeps that up or not, we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, we could see the most points in an NHL season in quite some time from Connor McDavid here. What's going to be more unfortunate is he ain't going to go anywhere because Edmonton is terrible, but it sucks to see in general. You hate to see it. But let's talk about our question of the day, which means we're slowly wrapping up this episode. Thank you guys for joining us here again at I80 Sports on our NHL show here. But before we go, question of the day. Tom, I'll ask you first. Who is your early favorite to win next year's World Junior Tournament?
I'm going to go with the Czechs, believe it or not. They may recapture glory. Remember one thing about this tournament, the following tournament next year. It's in Sweden, not in Canada, not on their soil. Now, Canada, not in Europe in general, no. But Canada, in the past, has, for whatever reason, struggled mightily when the tournaments are held in Scandinavia or the Nordic countries. Finland's not really Scandinavia, I guess you could say. But when the tournaments are held in those Nordic countries like Sweden or Finland, Canada always seems to get themselves in a little bit of trouble up there. So it might very well be the Czechs, might very well be the host team of the Swedes. And one thing I've noticed is when the tournament's held in Finland, the Swedes like to ruin the Finnish party. When the tournament's held in Sweden, the Finns like to ruin the Swedish party. So it could be one of those two as well. You never know.
It's going to be interesting to watch, that's for sure. But I don't know.
Disclaimer, one more thing. We won't be seeing Bedard over there next year.
No. Oh, my God, no. The Connor Bedard has nothing left to prove over at the World Junior Tournament next year. That being said, Connor Bedard or no Connor Bedard, I think Canada still has a little bit of a stranglehold on the IIHF at the moment. I see Canada as a team to beat next year in the tournament as well, with some returning faces and new faces coming to Team Canada next year as well. I just think that they're still a very, very talented squad that should not be overlooked. You're losing some important players after this year, namely Connor Bedard and Brant Clark on the defensive end, but I still see Canada as a team to beat currently, and Team USA too, just to put a feather in Team USA's cap too. But yeah, I really like your choice of the Czech Republic, but I still think it's Team Canada all the way for me. But as usual, guys, What do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree with our takes? You got to let us know down below in the comment section below. Let us know. Join the conversation. And while you're there, drop a like and subscribe if you're not currently subscribed. Again, that's youtube.com/i80sports. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so that way you guys know when we go live with our shows or any other future sports shows as well. The NFL is still in full swing, as well as the NBA. MLB is currently actually getting a little bit off the ground there. So you want to check out our weekly MLB show moving forward as well as we enter the new year and as we enter the MLB season soon as well. But yeah, check out the rest of our content on our channel. You don't want to miss it. And if you're on Twitter and you don't currently follow us, make sure you follow us down below at I80_sports NHL. And if you follow us already, thank you guys so much because we greatly value all of your support. But time to watch more hockey. The World Juniors might be over, but we're entering the midway point of the NHL season, which means next week we're coming at you with our midway report. You don't want to miss that next week. So until then, I'm Brian. He's Tom. This has been yet another episode of NHL on I80 Sports.